my name is Karen Barbito, and I'm the Director of Programming for Support After Abortion. And you are watching the Support After Abortion Healing Network Facebook Live event that happens every Tuesday at 4 p.m. We're so glad that you're here. I'm telling you, we have a show today. I'm going to say that again. We have a show for you today. But before we get to that, I'd like you to take just a few moments to share this video, to share this link with all of your Facebook friends, and to make sure that you like us on Facebook so that you can attend all of these and get all of the notifications. So who we have for you today are two presenters in our upcoming conference. If you haven't heard already, we're having our second virtual conference. It's from Wednesday, October 28th through Friday, October 30th. We have all kinds of live events that are going to be happening. And my two guests today are going to do an interview with me at that conference. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guests. Won't you all please help me in welcoming Jessica Russo from Embrace Grace. Jessica is the manager for donor development. And we also have with us Nallely Cortes, who works with Pro Love Ministries. She is a client manager for the Love Line. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you guys are here. Oh my goodness, what a compelling story you both have. We're going to dive right into it. Jessica, I know you've been on the show before, but people just don't get enough of you. So can you just share with us, you're here because you've been impacted by abortions yourself, right? And so could you just start at the beginning and take us on that journey with you? What was that like for you from the moment that you found out that you were pregnant?
Well, Karen, I grew up in a very religious home. I came from an amazing family, but very religious. And I didn't really understand what my purpose in life was, my value, my identity. And so I went searching for that. And at 16, I found myself in an unplanned pregnancy. And I mean, I will never forget the day that I took that test and it came back positive. I mean, it's just burned into my mind. And just immediately the fear that just cripples you. It's just this, it feels like there's yelling from the inside happening. You can't think straight, you can't process what's happening. And all I could think was that I was single-handedly gonna destroy my family. That my choices, my decisions were going to ruin our family. What would people think of us? What would people think of my family, my parents, my church community? Like, would I be able to finish high school? And like all these things. And I allowed myself to be convinced that abortion was the answer. And I really did believe that choosing abortion was a brave choice. I thought that I would be saving my family trouble. And I remember even being in the clinic, the abortion clinic, and talking with a counselor and how she said, you know, why are you making this decision today? What's brought you to this? And I'm listing all these things about how my parents are going to hate me and they're going to be so mad at my future. And I still to this day, don't remember a lot of things about my abortion experience. But I will never forget the words that she looked at me and she said, "You're making the right choice. You're saving your family a lot of trouble." And I really owned that I was trouble. I was an inconvenience, that my problems, my feelings were too much for other people to deal with, that somehow that made me broken to have to need people to help me with things. Less than a year later, I was pregnant again, and I chose abortion again. And the second time, it just kind of felt like a flow of motions. You know, in choosing abortion, I kind of went into like a robot mode where I shut off my feelings, because if you feel it's too much, right, then I might make rational decisions if I could feel things. And so it was just a lot of poor choices after that, looking for alcohol, substance, drugs, men to numb the pain, anything to make that pain go away, so I wouldn't have to process what I had experienced. But it was just a really dark season for me.
Yeah, let me ask you, Jessica. So what you didn't mention at all the father of either of your babies. Were they instrumental in your making that decision? Because we find that to be very common.
Yeah. The father of my first child, we had been dating for a long time, like a year and a half, and he immediately freaked out. And his family had high expectations for his future, and him going to college and achieving things. And he, in his verbiage, I mean, he was just a kid too. He was 17, and he was not in for it. He made it very clear that if I chose to not have an abortion, that he was out of the picture completely. And I thought that by choosing abortion would make him stick around, that he would love me still, which it ended up turning my heart, and the relationship imploded. And the father of my second child, I mean, he was an amazing guy. He was a really good guy, but it was my call. I owned my life. Nobody was going to tell me what to do, and I made that choice. And I didn't really give him an option in that. So the roles really reversed in that for me. It was because of my pain. I wasn't going to let anybody tell me what to do again.
Well, that's really common though, right? So in the first one, all of these external influences, contributed to you making the decision. You were trying to protect what you had, right? And then you have this father of the baby, and we have learned that the men, the fathers of the baby, are the most influential person when a woman is making the decision to abort. And then the second time, which is very common as well, is easier the second time, right? You learned how to cope with those emotions that you've had from the first one. It's going to be my responsibility. It's going to be my decision. I'm going to be in control at this time, because nothing turned out the way I wanted it to the last time. So just thank you for validating what we hear from hundreds of women all the time. So thanks for sharing that.
There was also a part of me that felt like if I didn't have an abortion for the second pregnancy, that it would have made the first one for nothing. I mean, totally messed up way of thinking, but like deep down, I knew that I was hurting. I just wouldn't let those feelings rise up, and I wasn't going to let it be for nothing. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of messed up, but that was my thought.
I do think that makes sense, right? Like if I don't abort this second one, the first one was for nothing. I can totally hear that. You started to talk about how your life just kind of went down a really dark road. Mine did that too. I didn't connect the dots at the time. Like I didn't know that I was promiscuous or drinking or doing drugs or all of those things to numb the pain that I felt, because I denied ever even having any pain. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit, just a little later. I want to move over to Nallely. Thanks for being on the show. I'm so glad that I got introduced to you from Pam Whitehead. Pam Whitehead is the executive director of Pro Love Ministries, and we love them. We're a recent affiliate of Pro Love. So thank you, Pam, if you're watching. Thanks for the introduction, because this woman is amazing. So Nallely, your story is quite a bit different, right? How about if you start from the beginning for us?
Yes, well, I live here in California. My name is Nallely. And let's see, well, I have 4 amazing children. I am happily married. And, I grew up in a home where there was not a lot of religion involved. We grew up Catholic, but just going to church like probably when my mom had time to take us. So, it wasn't, she was always busy. She was always working. She was a single mom for a while. And so I grew up to be, not too a wild child. Okay. So, I found myself pregnant at 14. And it was really hard. My mom found out when I was 4 months. And, she just asked me, hey, Nallely, are you pregnant? And I just started crying. And I said, I think so. So, it was a couple days I should mention, would you have an abortion? And I said, I didn't really know what an abortion was, but I said no. Like, I looked at her and I said, no, Mom. And, she turned the car around and we went home. And, after that, by the age of 19, I had 4 kids. They were all under the age of under the age of 3. Um, so I was, I got my medical assistant certificate, and I started working in a place where I was actually helping low income families. And, I was doing my all. I worked very hard to be, to be valued and all that stuff. And, my 1 year thing comes up and they call me in and they're like, Nallely, you're doing an amazing job and here's your raise. And I looked at my check and it was like 16 cents raise. And I said, you know what? I am doing my all. I am doing everything that I have to do, and I'm bilingual, and I think I deserve a little bit more, and I have 4 kiddos. So I started, hunting for a job online, and I found myself.
Before you go there, Nallely, before you go
Yes.
to that new job, I want to go
Okay.
back a little bit because we just went over a 14-year-old having 4 kids by the time she's 19, and I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Like, and you froze up a little bit when you were in the car with your mom. So I didn't hear what you said, but it sounds like your mom was suggesting that you had an abortion. So tell me what that was like again, when your mom found out that you were pregnant, and where your thinking was, and how someone at 14 years old had the courage to say no to their mom.
Yeah. So, okay. So my mom found out, and like, she went crazy. She didn't want to accept that her daughter was pregnant. So, probably like 3 days later, we got in the car. We were gonna go. I don't know. I remember where. And we got into we stopped at a red light, and she just looked at me and she said, Nallely, if I would ask you to have an abortion, will you have an abortion? And I looked at her and I was like, no, Mom. I didn't really know what an abortion was, but I said no. So we got home, she went into her room, she started crying. And, my siblings were younger than me and they weren't, too excited of what was going on at home. So it was like 2 weeks when I was just didn't want to come down to my room. I was very embarrassed. My stepdad didn't want me to stay at the house. I was really embarrassed, and I had to go to school. And, they sent me to like this teen program. And, and the dad and my boyfriend at that time, he was like, you know what, let's do this. I'm with you. My mom, wanted to throw him in jail because, he was older. And he said, you know what, if you do it, I'm not going to be responsible for the baby. Like, as soon as I found out, I could have left, but I didn't. I'm willing to take everything and help your daughter and raise that baby. So my mom, kind of like.
So this is awesome, guys, because I mean, completely different experience that Jessica had, right? The father of the baby that wouldn't support her, that threatened to leave her. And now here you are at 14. And let me just tell you, it's not common for 14-year-olds to make the choice that you made. You know what I mean? And to be as bold as you were. So I want you here, for those of you listening out here, it's possible to make that kind of decision at the age of 14. Yes, that's all I'm going to say on that matter. But here's a man, a boy that stands alongside you and says, we can do this. And that gave you the courage to be able to go forward with that pregnancy. So continue. I'm riveted.
Yes, go. And that helped me a bit. I was scared, I at the same time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just throwing my life away. I'm not going to be able to go out with friends. I'm not going to be able to live my life. I'm only 14. I haven't done anything. And but my mom, I think I blamed her a lot back at that time, that she was like, okay, you got in this mess. You're going to raise this baby. I'll help you a little bit, but this is yours. This is your deal. So that helped me a lot to like mature at the age of 15 when I had Andrea. So I think it took me, after that time that I found out I was pregnant, it took me probably, I was 7 months and I accepted that I loved my baby. Because times before that, there was 2 times where I laid on my stomach for her to just get out. And I would just lay on my stomach and I would be like, Andrea, just get out of my stomach. I don't want you in there. You're just gonna ruin my life. And I did that twice. And she was stronger. She kept on fighting for herself. And then I told this to my boyfriend, and he said, you know what? If you don't want her, please just be strong, have her, and I can take her from you, and you can live the life that you want to live. And I was like, how are you going to take her? Like, what gives you the right to take her? And, I was like, you're not going to do that. So he said, just listen to yourself. You're telling me not to take her, but you want to get rid of her. Like, what is going on with you? So I was 7 months and I was like, okay, Andrea, I love you. And, I just started talking to her and she would like move like crazy. And I had her at 8 months. So that whole month helped me to really see what I was bringing into life. I was calling her by her name. And, every time that he would walk in through that door and, like whistle, because he would do a little whistle and she would just jump in my stomach. And, that kind of like helped me. And, so it was just a long process and it wasn't easy, because we didn't even know each other, we just had a baby and this process is a long thing, and then by the age of 19, I find myself with 4 babies and it was just insane, but I'm good and I survived and now she's 18 and she's amazing. Like, she's my best friend.
That's so awesome. And so thanks for going back and taking us on that journey with you. So you had a job, you got a 16-cent raise. We're going to go over to Jessica here, but I'm summarizing for those that are watching and listening. And so now you're on a search for a new job. We're going to come back to you in just a minute. Okay, Jessica, so you've had your second abortion. And so you're living a life that just totally trying to numb the pain that you didn't want to feel. So can you pick up where you left off?
So it was probably a year after my second abortion, I started experiencing like really painful monthly cycles. And my mom insisted on taking me to the doctor, and I was terrified because she had no idea that I had had 2 abortions. At that time in Texas, a minor could get an abortion with no parental consent. I couldn't get my earrings pierced or my ears pierced by myself, but I went and had 2 abortions completely alone. Like, what in the world? So the doctor tells me that I have severe endometriosis, and he was like, this is a severe case. Like, he just kept going. And it felt like he was just harping on it. Like, I felt like he knew exactly what had happened, and he was like punishing me with his words. Like, he wasn't going to out me, but he was punishing me. And it just several years, like it just kept getting worse. And doctor after doctor was telling me that the likelihood of me having children past my mid-20s was less than 20%, that I had such severe scar tissue in my uterus that it wasn't optimal or whatever. It wasn't a good environment for a baby. So I just bore that as like, God's punishing me. I don't deserve to have children. I have killed 2 of my children. I'm a horrible person. And this is just God punishing me. And so like, I just owned all of this shame. And there's something funny about abortion pain. And like, we own it. Like, it's ours. You're not going to take it from me. You're not going to compare it with anything else. Nobody understands this. And it's not even recognizing that it's pain. but at the same time, you know it's pain. It's really messed up. But there was a lot of casual relationships with men, drugs, alcohol, really reckless behavior. I mean, very reckless behavior. And it was, I didn't really care what happened to me, because there's no way that I could hurt any more than I did. And I kept everybody at arm's length, really unhealthy behaviors with other females and friendships. I didn't let anybody get too close to me. And if they did, I would sabotage it. I would get dramatic, cut them out of my life, get upset about something that didn't matter. And so my husband and I, we kind of started dating when we were 19. It was very unhealthy for years and years. People in and out of my life. And when we started to get our lives together, like there was just this day. And I remember feeling like I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know where the pain was coming from anymore. I just knew that I hurt and I was miserable. And I felt like I was about to have a nervous breakdown. Like nothing made sense in my life. I mean, I had a great job. I had my own place. I had a great car. I had a great life. I had everything that I needed to have, but nothing made me happy. And I called my parents one day and I said, I don't know what's going on. I just know that I hurt too much. Can I come back home? And I quit my job. I get rid of my apartment. And I told my now husband, then I was like, I don't want to ever hear from you again. Like I have got to cut everything out of my life. I don't know where the pain is coming from, but I just can't take it anymore. Now looking back, I can see that it was just a spider web from my abortion experiences. It just like poison had gone all over my body and infected every part of my life.
Well, and you know what's so interesting, Jessica? I hope those of you that are watching can see the contrast between these two women. Secrecy and shame over on Jessica's side manifest into all kinds of unhealthy behavior and physical illness, right? Not only mental, but physical illness. And here's Nallely that was in an equally difficult situation that chose life. It was not a secret. It was difficult for her because of her age. She had the support of abortion and her life. So as she started having children, she started getting better in life, going to school, had a pretty good job, wasn't satisfied with the raise that she got. And she's improving in life while Jessica's on a downward spiral in life. I just think that's an interesting contrast to point out. So come on, Jessica, get us to the good part.
So anyways, my husband now and I, we get married and I go into this marriage thinking, if I can't give him children, is he going to leave me and bail on me? This first person I've let into my life and close to me, and it's vulnerable. We were married less than a year or right at a year, and we found out we were pregnant. And I was, but I was terrified the whole pregnancy that I was going to lose the baby. And then after he was born, I couldn't sleep at night because I was terrified that he was going to die in his sleep, and that I really thought that God was going to take me. And I would say things like, God messed up and gave me this life. My husband's too good to me. I'm happy, like God messed up. And so we just kept having kids. We have 4 sons now. So God totally healed me. And like with every pregnancy, God was trying to woo my heart. But it wasn't until our oldest son was in preschool. We had him at a Christian school because we wanted him to know God, but we did not go to church. And I heard his teacher talking about a baby shower for single and pregnant girls at her church. And my heart just exploded. And I thought, if this church believes that God loves these girls and they're celebrating their babies, maybe there's still a shot for me. So I asked this teacher about it, and she could see it all over me. Okay, she could see it all over me. She's like, what's your story? Why do you want to get involved? And it was Embrace Grace before it was a nonprofit, just when it was a small group at Gateway Church. And I just started blurting things out, and I was sweating, like physically sweating, like bullets of sweat running down my face because I was so scared. And I could hear myself saying the word shame over and over again. That's all I remember saying. And she just looked at me and she said, I know you say you believe that God has forgiven you, but have you allowed him to forgive you? Like, have you received his forgiveness?
Mm.
And she invited me to an abortion healing class at her church. I was like, there's no way, an H, I'm coming to your church and talking about an abortion. I had an abortion, so I wouldn't have to talk about it at church. But I went, I thought I was going to puke walking in, and it completely transformed my life. I mean, just completely transformed my life.
Yeah. I love the comment that you just made. I had an abortion, so I didn't have to talk about it at church, right? Kudos to that woman who invited you to come, and that church for offering a safe place for men and women, to heal after abortion, right?
Yeah.
There's no sin that God can't redeem. And I love your story, Jessica, how he pursued you even though you didn't know it, throughout your life. And what a wonderful husband to stand alongside you, even though you were really rotten to him in the beginning.
Okay, awful.
Yeah. So Nallely, here your life is, you got 4 babies, you're 19 years old. I can't even wrap my head around that. I can't even, I wasn't able to have kids. So your worst nightmare came true for me, Jessica, in that after my abortion, I couldn't have kids. And I had told myself for decades that I killed the only baby God had for me. And I tortured myself over that, and yet now he has me sitting in a ministry where I get to be around babies and women that are pregnant all the time, so he knows what's best for us, right? I have the best of both worlds. Don't feel sorry for me, people that are watching, because they don't cost me any money. I can give them back when they stink. And if they're crying, I get to send them home with mom and dad. So I get them only when they're at their best. What's better than that for an impatient person like me? God knows he did the right thing by me. So Nallely, so here you are, 19, 4 babies, aspiring to get a better job. Tell us what that was.
Okay, so I started applying for a new job, and I saw that Planned Parenthood was hiring a receptionist. So I didn't really know what Planned Parenthood was, but I was like, I read the description of the job, and I said, this is something I can do. I was trained for a receptionist and medical assistant at school, so I think I can do it. So I applied, and then it said bilingual preferred, so I applied, and so I went for my interview, and I'm sitting in my interview, and the manager was like, okay, Nallely, so how do you feel about abortions? And I said, well, I got into the medical field to help, women, and I'll do that here. And, I'm not going to judge. And she said, how does your family feel of you working here? And I said, well, they have to respect what I am doing. And as long as I don't have one, I'll be okay. And they called me that afternoon, and they said, we offer the job, and we're going to give you $1 more of what you were making plus 50 cents more because you're bilingual. And I said, okay, well, that sounds awesome, right? Because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a job that will pay me more and that, gives me. And then they said, you go buy your scrubs and bring the receipt, and we'll give you that money back. And, scrubs are expensive. And for a mom with 4 kids, and, I was like, hey, this is awesome. So I gave my 2-week notice at my other job. And I remember one coworker, she said, Nallely, why are you going to work there? You have 4 kids. Don't work there, please. And I said, you know what? They're going to pay me good. They're going to give me good money. And, here goes Nallely going to work at Planned Parenthood. And well, I did start as a receptionist. Okay. I was just doing the receptionist job, just, filing paperwork, filing charts. And then they were like, okay, Nallely, you know what? I think we got to train you for answering phone calls. So, I was doing that. I was answering phone calls, scheduling appointments, I was going through all of that. And then they were like, okay, Nallely, I think you are ready to check in patients. And so I was sitting at the front desk and checking in patients, and we had abortions every 2 weeks, and they switched them every day. Like every day, they would switch the day And now it's so funny that I look at it, because they were like, okay, the people that are praying outside, we don't want, they kind of like know what day is the abortion day. So we don't want them to be here like every Monday. So we switch them around. So, they're not here. So I was like, okay, and we had like the nasty people outside. They would yell nasty stuff to us, and they would call us baby killers. And they were just not, the peaceful praying, they were very nasty. So I was like, yeah, okay, I understand, they probably don't want them to talk to the girls. It kind of didn't like hit me why. And so then, they were like, okay, Nallely, now you're ready to counsel. So like every like probably like 3 weeks, I would get trained in a different position. And so I started counseling clients, how I got trained by the other medical assistant. I just did it exactly how she taught me. So, just counseling clients, hey, you have 3 choices: adoption, abortion, and keep the baby. And so tell me your story. Why are you here? So we would go through all of that. And then, most of them were crying. Most of them were, they didn't even know what they wanted. So we just like, hey, if you're here, probably because you probably want an abortion. And, we would go through that whole thing. We would schedule them for the abortion appointment and get them out. And then after that, my boss calls me in the office and she says, Nallely, I want to give you a bonus. And but just don't tell anyone. This is just a bonus for you. And I got home with $100. And I was like, hey, who does this? Like, they just gave me $100. And I also got my phlebotomy certificate in one day. So I saw that there was like a lot of potential there. So that's what kept me in there. And I never, and while I wasn't upstairs doing, the abortion clinic day or anything, I didn't see bad. So then, little by little, I get trained upstairs, just taking in patients, taking their blood pressure, just doing the medical assistant stuff. And then, I was really scared to do the drawing blood. Okay. I never thought that I was qualified for it. Even though we just went for a 1-day class, I was very scared to do that. So I would always call one friend to come and do it for me. I was like, hey, I need help. I can't find the vein. Please do it for me. Because I didn't feel like I was qualified to do it. And so then, they started training me for the abortion clinic. So they were like, okay, I know you're just starting. This is your first clinic working. You're just gonna transfer the clients after they have the abortion to the recovery room. So that wasn't that bad, right? Just picking up moms and taking them to the recovery room, just making sure they were doing okay, feeling good, 15 minutes, okay, you get to go home. And then, I was doing that for a while, and then I started working in the POC lab. And
Can you explain what that is?
Huh?
Can you explain what POC is for those people that are watching?
Yes, so the POC lab is the products of conception. So they hand them to us in a jar, in a glass jar. They hand them to us from the room because I had to be standing outside of the room where the abortion was going on. I would get the glass jar and then I would come into the lab and I would drop it in the dish on top of the light and rinse it off. I would rinse the baby parts off and then just leave it there. The doctor would come, count the pieces, and just tell us, yes, you're good. And we would put it in a red bag and we would throw it in the freezer. So that was like, a thing.
What was that like for you? I mean, like, so I hear in your story that they're giving you incentives, they're teaching you new things, frequently, they're giving you additional responsibilities. I can see how that would, feed you and encourage you in your position that you're doing your job well. And then the bonuses. What was it like for you though? I'd like to hear a little bit about when, because you eventually left that industry and what was it? Was it seeing the girls walking in crying? Was it And by the way, I just want to mention that sidewalk advocates today get a training through a great organization called Sidewalk Advocates for Life, and they're very loving and compassionate. They're not those people that are yelling at men and women that are going in and out of abortion clinics. So, you know, there are some really well qualified and trained sidewalk advocates and counselors out there. I'm sorry that the clinic that you worked at, Nallely, didn't have that kind of support. But I mean, when was it that you started to think that maybe what I'm doing isn't right?
So I understand now that what allowed me to continue doing this work is just I was so focused on doing a good job and getting more money just to have food on the table for my kids. Because in the time now, now that I think about it, my husband now, we weren't in a good relationship. He started getting into, drinking and not coming home and coming home late. And I was just so focused on, doing good job because I needed that money, because I was like, he's probably gonna leave. He's probably gonna leave me, and I have to be strong to keep my kids, well fed. So I was just so focused on doing that. So then, I was working then they started training me being in the room and when the abortion procedure was going on. And I remember these girls, like they would be holding their rosaries. In the area where I used to work, there's a lot of Hispanics and a lot of people that don't even speak Spanish. Okay, they would speak dialects. So most of the time we would translate through the husband, and probably the husband understood a little bit, and he would pass that to the wife or to the girl that he would bring in. So so most of the time, they were crying, they were holding their rosaries, and I was like, why are they crying? They chose this, and I was like, okay. And one of them, one day she told me, she's like, can you hold my hand while I do this? And I said, and I just looked at the doctor, and he said, he just moved his head. And I just, held her hand, and I was like, oh gosh, she was like squeezing it so hard. And I was like, okay, I don't know, probably she feels pain. Probably it hurts. So, after that, I was like, okay. But one time we were only doing abortions up to 12 weeks. And this girl comes in, she had already paid, she'd already done everything, she was on the table, and the doctor did the ultrasound again, and he found that she was 16 weeks. And, the nurse comes out and she said, Nallely, the baby's 16 weeks, he can't do it because we can only do 12 weeks. And he said, you know what, I'm going to do it because I'm trained to do this. I do it all the time. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's not tell her, let's do the procedure. So he goes and does the procedure. So when I get that jar with the baby pieces, I empty that jar into the petri dish, and it was like nothing that I've ever seen. Okay, this baby's head was complete. You can see every detail in his face and his little arms. Everything was in pieces, but you can see everything with detail. And I was like, oh gosh, this looks like a baby. And, same routine, rinsed him off, bagged him up, and put him in the freezer. And I got home that night and I drained him. And I got to work the next day, and I told one of my friends, I was like, hey, I had a dream about that baby. Did you think about him too? She said, Nallely, no, like that's nothing. Like let's continue working. And that kept on bugging me. Like that little head, it was like right here, okay? And I kept on thinking about him, but I was like, no, this is nothing. I'm not doing anything bad. And at home, my husband was like getting closer to his faith. He said, Nallely, let's do this. Let's work for this. I feel like we can work it out. And let's do this. And I said, all right. So I decided to leave my job, and I told my boss, hey, I'm gonna go and be a mom. And if when we're ready, can I come back? And she said, Nallely, you've been awesome. I have a position open at the time that you're ready to come back, and you're good. So, my journey started there. My
That's so
husband,
good.
yeah.
I can't believe that 45 minutes has almost gone by because it's been so riveting. And you that are watching may want to know, and we're going to get to some questions here for just a second. So we're probably going to go a little bit over, but you lady, or for those of you that are watching, we have these two ladies sharing their testimony with you today because at our virtual conference from the 28th through the 30th, they're going to share the real part of their story, their healing part of the story, how God was convicting them each in very unique and specific ways and how they met. And that presentation at the conference is called Humanizing People. There are more similarities about these two than there are differences. Let's go to a couple of questions and then we're going to be done for the day. I'm telling you, you got to come back to the conference and hear the end of this story or else you're going to miss out on the big bang, right? So there's a question from Judy. Where do the parts go after the freezer?
Well, we had a truck come pick them up. I don't know where they were taken. We just had a truck come pick them up every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. There's a couple of comments here. If you have any questions in our final moments for Jessica or Nallely, I just appreciate you guys being so authentic and genuine for us. I'm sorry we went so long because I wanted to get a little bit further into the story, but it was really, I learned a lot from you, Nallely. I did not know what the culture was like inside of Planned Parenthood. And you really described that in detail. And Jessica, thank you for sharing about your 2 abortions and how your life unfolded after that, because that's very common what we hear. But I have a couple of comments for you. One person said, I count it a blessing to hear the wonderful presenters. So there's people listening to you today. A comment from Judy, a father who values the mother and child. She just loved that and put a heart next to that. And then what a story of life. Thank you, Nallely, for sharing your story with those that are watching. So again, before we close, October 28th through 30th, you can register for free at supportafterabortionvirtualconference.com. You can get a premium pass for $49.99. That gives you access to all the live and all the pre-recorded content for a number of days after the conference is over. The conference is live 9 to 5, Monday or Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's the 28th through 30th. And there will be a schedule available so you can find out when those live events happen. These two are going to be in a live interview with me where you're going to get the rest of the story. It's not going to be with Steve Harvey. It's going to be with Karen Barbito, the rest of the story. Next week, I have Stephen Hokana on the show with me. He is a retired chaplain for the Army, and he's going to be talking about PTSD, sexual trauma PTSD, military PTSD, and we're going to make the correlation and the connection between after abortion PTSD and what the military goes through just in combat. So make sure that you tune in next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Let's see if we have anything left to do. Thank you all so much for pouring out your hearts. Cannot wait to hear the rest of the story. And Nallely, did you need healing after assisting women with abortion? Come to the conference. You're going to hear about that. She's shaking her head yes. That's part of the rest of the story. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.